Hello, Fisher's Point. It's time for another OnPoint Devotional. Today, we are talking about the Messiah, talking about Jesus Christ. Right now, as I'm making this particular recording, we are in the midst of Advent season. Advent season is this time where we are anticipating the coming of the Messiah and his work, his ministry. We know that Messiah is Jesus Christ. Oh, I just kind of gave away the ending there. But there are some interesting little tidbits that maybe you might not have thought about when learning about the Messiah. Today's reading is Matthew chapter 2, and we're going to read 4 through 6, those verses. And in this particular case, let me set up the context before I get into this. The wise men, or magi, had just visited Jesus. Jesus was born a little while ago, and they came back to Herod, the King Herod, to give him the information about this little baby king. Because the prophecy had said that a baby would be born and it would overthrow the king, so Herod had to do everything he could to try to destroy babies and make sure that he was not going to be overthrown someday. Which actually kind of sounds familiar when you look at like the Exodus story, when you look at the story of King David, and we're going to talk a little bit about him, and now we're looking at Jesus. So let me get into it. The Magi, the wise men, are with King Herod, and they're giving him the report. Verse 4 says, when he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. He wanted to see, okay, where are they going to be born, or who is it? And they said, in Bethlehem, in Judea, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. We know now that that was talking about Jesus Christ coming as the Messiah. That was prophesied back in the prophets, and Micah specifically is that particular reference. But it sounded really familiar because that same type of thing was said about King David. Have you read about King David? Well, this King David, who was known to be one of the most amazing prophet kings, if you will, back in the Old Testament, was born in this little place that was not really known for producing anything amazing, and that place was Bethlehem. So even to this day in the New Testament, when someone would mention Bethlehem, people would say, oh, nothing really happens in Bethlehem. That's not a big deal. But in actuality, they're not exactly right, because think about King David. There's some big things that happened there, right? And he was a conqueror of men. I mean, he was faithful to God in almost everything, and obviously he had a few slip-ups. But in this case, the prophecy was all about this newborn baby who was going to live a perfect life and come for the salvation of the world. That wasn't on David's shoulders. That wasn't on Gideon's shoulders. That wasn't even on Abraham's shoulders. This was on Jesus' shoulders. And later on, we see that Jesus came and lived his perfect life and taught and did miracles and died a peasant's death, or a criminal's death. The King of the universe came for us and humbled himself to the point of death. You can't humble yourself any more than that. What kind of gratitude are we giving to God today for that whole story? Nothing good comes out of Bethlehem? Well, David did. Jesus did. And it seems like sometimes we can live our lives thinking that nothing good can come from us. But what can come from us? That which comes from us can only be that which is in us. And the Holy Spirit in us produces good works in us for our neighbors, for everyone around us. Embrace the Holy Spirit today. He can be your guide. He can be your director. He can be your counselor. So if we are to embrace the Holy Spirit, it means that the Holy Spirit is within us and the Holy Spirit comes out of us. Lean into Him today.